Perfectionism is not a high standard. It's a shield. It is a deeply calculated psychological defense mechanism we use to protect our egos from being judged. Because if you never finish that video, if you never launch that business, if you never upload that art, then nobody can ever tell you that you aren't good enough. My name is Ethan. At 21, I was a prisoner of my own mind. I was a digital artist with a hard drive full of masterpieces that no one would ever see. I would spend 300 hours tweaking a single shadow, only to delete the entire file because it didn't match the impossible standard inside my head. I was broke, anxious, and completely paralyzed. To make rent, I took a job assisting the estate of Vance. Vance was a titan. He was a comic book artist whose characters became global, billion-dollar cinematic franchises. I expected his private studio to look like a museum of flawless technique. Instead, it looked like a war zone. The walls were gouged, charcoal dust covered every surface, and the corner of the room was stacked high with massive industrial trash bins. My explicit instruction from his lawyers was to go through those trash bins and shred any discarded sketches so they wouldn't be stolen and sold on the black market. But on my second day, deep at the bottom of a bin full of crumpled paper, I found a black leather sketchbook. It wasn't a book of art. It was a diary. I sat down on a pile of cardboard and opened to a page dated October 14th, 1982. The handwriting was frantic, digging so deep into the paper that the pages were warped. "The monster is back," Victor had written. "The urge to make it perfect is paralyzing my hand again. I've spent 3 days trying to draw the hero's face, and every line looks like trash. I want to burn the studio down." I stared at the page, my heart racing. Victor Vance, the man who shaped the childhoods of millions, felt exactly the same suffocating dread that I did. But it was what he wrote next that changed my life forever. So tonight, I decided to play a game. I took my favorite ink pen, closed my eyes, and purposely slashed a jagged, ugly line across the entire canvas. I ruined it on purpose, just to get the failure out of the way. The entry explained that once the canvas was already ruined, the pressure vanished. The phantom expectation of a flawless masterpiece died right there on the paper. Victor looked at that ugly, accidental slash of ink, and instead of throwing it away, he used it. That jagged, ruined line became the iconic asymmetrical scar on the face of his most famous villain, a character that would later generate hundreds of millions of dollars. "Perfection is a sterile room where nothing grows," the diary read. "Greatness only happens in the dirt. You have to be willing to make garbage if you ever want to make history." I looked around the messy studio. I looked at the thousands of crumpled papers in the trash bins. They weren't failures. They were the literal footsteps Victor Vance took to find his best ideas. He didn't create a masterpiece by being flawless. He created it by having the courage to build through the mess. I looked at my hands, covered in charcoal dust. I realized that my half-finished, locked-away files weren't a sign of my high standards. They were a sign of my cowardice. I was so afraid of making a mistake that I chose to make nothing at all. The diary's final sentence was a direct attack on my entire identity. "An ugly, finished drawing can inspire the world. A perfect, unwritten idea does nothing but rot the mind of the person holding it. Kill your ego. Release the garbage. Start before you're ready." I didn't finish sorting the trash that night. I left the estate, drove back to my apartment, and opened my laptop. I didn't click on my old, overanalyzed files. Instead, I opened a completely blank canvas. I grabbed my digital pen, closed my eyes, and drew a massive, chaotic, imperfect line across the screen. And for the first time in 3 years, I smiled, because I finally understood. The pressure was gone. The canvas was already broken. Now it was time to build.